That was one of the bloodiest battles of the First World War. Hundreds of thousands of young men were killed or wounded during the Battle of the Somme.
Ahead of Armistice Day, an artist has made it his mission to remember the fallen in a unique way. He's creating more than 72,000 figurines, one for each of the men whose bodies were never found. John Maguire has more.
It was called the War to End All Wars, and when you see this physical representation of 19,240, the number of men killed on just the first day at the Battle of the Somme, you understand how unimaginable any future wars would have been. But we know different. This is the artist Rob Hurd's tribute to those who lost their lives.
It's so important that that number is physicalised in any way it can be. You know, to understand that these aren't just numbers. These were, these were men, and they still are.
The first shrouds were laid out in Exeter and Bristol last autumn.
Each figure deserves its moment in time.
And for the past 4 years, Rob has covered these figurines, plastic and with flexible joints to allow a natural form, in the tiny hand-stitched shrouds. He's working 12 hours a day, self-funded, and now has a new goal, 72,396, one for every man who died at the Somme and whose bodies were never recovered.
When you understand, or you try and think what these men suffered, how these men died, they didn't die easy, they died hard. And I think, how can I say this is hard work when you're dealing with that? And it's a great, gives me a great sense of perspective.
When you think about all the lives that were lost, yeah, it brings it into focus.
Noel Young's great-uncle died on that first day. 19-year-old Ronald was never found.
My grandfather never talked about it, and when I spoke to my father about it, he said it was a conversation he never had, and I can only assume that it was probably too tough to talk about. It's so important that we remember these things, that these faces are not just forgotten, and what they did for us and for the future.
And there's interest from a new generation 100 years on. These A-level students, the same age as some who fought in the Great War, are studying Rob's work. The Shrouds of the Somme will be laid out in the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London to mark the centenary of the First World War's end. And today there's a public appeal for any family personal information about the 72,000.
We hope that people will be inspired by Rob's artwork, just as we were, to go out and find out more about these people, to put faces to those names, to put life back into the dead. And so that's why we're really proud to be working with Shrouds of the Somme, to ask the nation to go and seek out these stories and to help us retell these stories for a new generation.
Rob has placed all the names on these boards. He's committed to creating a shroud for each man, one by one, to make hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, lest we forget. John Maguire, BBC News, Somerset.